Welcome back. So on Saturday I was in the shop and got my still hooked up. Got my water tanks hooked up here, so I got two of them now. So 110 gallons altogether. One feeds into the other, and that goes through the heat exchanger to keep the engine cool when running for extended periods of time. So that's working well. And as you can see here, I wanted you to see and have a listen here of how much air is being blown all the way across the parking lot over here. And it was a bit breezy that day, but there was a lot more air blowing right where I was standing there, and the engine was running just at 2800 RPM, which is sort of cruise power setting. Here's another look with the FLIR camera, and this time I've got it sort of dialed in a little bit better. It's still showing just sort of relative heats here, but I've got that little temperature gauge in the middle there, giving me more accurate readings. So yeah, everything was looking pretty good on that. I've been told by several different people that the aluminum parts and stuff, I need to paint them flat black if I want to get any real heat indication off them, but that exhaust there is just a steel exhaust, and so that's giving a fairly accurate reading. And I'm not sure why the FLIR camera every now and then sort of flicks off like that, but everything was looking pretty good on there. Nothing out of the ordinary. You see everything gets brighter there because it's a relative thing. You've really got to look at the number in the circle there to kind of know what temperatures you're looking at. I'm going to try and adjust that on my camera too, so it just sort of keeps everything relative to one temperature range for the video. And here you can see that's the exhaust coming out the left side, 520 degrees there, which is totally reasonable. And I'm going to probably wrap that exhaust, or I might send it away to get ceramic coating. I'm not sure yet. Just they've got so many other things I need to do, and doing that is just having to pull the exhaust off and all that good stuff. Just another job that I just frankly just don't have time to do right now. Anyway, looking at the other side and around the front of the engine there, most of that heat is coming from where the water pump stuff is there, and again it's not that hot there, 160 degrees. It's, as I said, all relative. And then down there is I think that's where a lot of the oil feed is there, 200 degrees. That's what it was at. So the engine had been running for about an hour already when I took this video, so the engine was already up to temperature well and truly. And it's a air conditioning compressor, which I think might be toast already because we've been running it without any gas through it. And there's the other exhaust, similar to the other one there, 580 degrees. It's kind of the highest temperature there, and no real surprises there, but I think it's worthwhile at least wrapping that or doing a ceramic coating on there. And then there's the that's the pipe that goes between turbo 1 and turbo 2. Not very hot actually, only 300 degrees there. You'd think it'd be more. But it's definitely the hot thing in that area. And then you can see the little spikes there. That's where the air goes into the second turbo, and that's a little higher, 400 and something degrees. So I guess it's compressing in there and getting hotter. Anyway, it's interesting to see all this, and it definitely shows you some information that you wouldn't normally see. And back in the shop on Monday, here's Devon working on laying up the mold for that little blow-away door that covers the parachute. And because it was fairly simple, Jeff suggested that the guys, Devon and Zach, basically just lay up the whole thing in one hit. So they did the top coat and then the lightweight and then straight onto the heavyweight, and got it all knocked out in a couple of hours. And over the weekend I decided it was best that we actually create the seat mounts for the 2-seat option for the rear seats, and I'm actually already ordered the same seats that we have in the front to go in the back, and so that's what we're going to do for the prototype, because a 3-seat option just wasn't going to fit with those same seats. And back in the fuselage here, Jeff has gone and done a layup there on the top of the windshield there after he sort of filled that little gap last week. So again, closing in on all the stuff that needs to be done in the fuselage. And after I finished running the engine over the weekend, I noticed a small oil leak again, and so those Allen bolts there that hold that turbo onto that bracket had come loose again, and this time I decided to really fix it. So I've basically drilled some holes in there and through the bracket and through the bolt heads, and I've safety wired them in place, and you'll see more on that in a minute. And while I was doing that, I also sort of jacked up the engine a little bit and put a couple more, or put another spacer in here underneath the those Lord mounts, the engine mounts, just to lift the engine up a little bit more, and did that on both sides. And the goal is to get a much better alignment there on our LPEX torsional damper there. It's difficult to see from this angle, but basically there you can see a little bit better. But I've got that rubber thing sitting much better in the aluminum housing now, which is a good thing. And here's the platform for those seats, for the seat mount, sorry. Guys threw that together really quickly on Monday, and by the end of the day I had it up on the machine and running, cutting the foam. And this is it, just starting out. So this is now the last platform that will actually be run on the machine. We've still got to cut some ribs out of the MDF, and unless I actually decide later on that we're going to do the door trim and stuff, then that would be the last one. So here's that bracket now, and you can see I've got the safety wire through those holes, which now will stop those bolts from coming loose, and we'll probably end up redesigning this a little bit for production, because it's that whole sort of bracket there was an idea that came from the first guy who was working on the engine, and I wasn't all that happy with it. And the other thing I wanted to do here is I wanted to create another bracket that would support the second turbo, because it's sort of been supported by the Y pipe and that main bracket, and it's just, there's too much weight sort of hanging on. I always wanted to do this, I just wasn't sure how, and so now I figured it out. So there's some extra holes in that flange that holds that turbo on, and there's also some holes over here on the head, which is just nice to have, so I can actually create a bracket between those two, and it's going to be a bit of a Franken bracket, but you know, I'll figure it out, and you'll see that in a little bit. So here's that seat mount plug off the machine already, and cleaned up, and the guys putting the glass on it. This is today, Tuesday, so they used the high speed or the quick setting resin on there so we could get it done quickly. And this is the last other plug that was there for the front nose gear doors, so that one's getting underway. So this is how I approached creating that bracket. I just basically took some thin cardboard and created a little rectangular piece there and put the holes in it, put some bolts as a placeholder there just as a starting point, and then got some bolts as well that fit this one, and I ended up basically doing the same thing there, creating a flat piece there. And as you'll see shortly, I basically joined those two together. So there's the roof part there with the peel ply taken off, and now Jeff's working on the same layup there over the bottom of the windshield. So he'd already closed that out before and filled that sort of gap that was there, and so now he's got the layup over there, and that one just needs to have the peel ply on that just to smooth it out. You know, the idea of the peel ply is when you put it on, you sort of you know, just sort of stick it on there and pat it all down with a brush, and when you peel it off you get a nice finish. And there's my little bracket made out of, you know, thin cardboard right now, and just a bit of tape holding it together. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. And so I cut all the pieces in that, and you'll see in a minute. So I took the stuff to powder coating there on Monday morning, and I picked it up this morning. So those guys rock, you know. This is Raptor coating down south of us. And if you're in the Atlanta area and you need any powder coating done, those are absolutely the guys you want to take your stuff to. They do a great job, and they do it really fast for a super reasonable price. I'll be taking some more stuff back there again soon. And so here's my bracket actually done now. I cut the pieces out and I tacked it together with some not very pretty tacks, but enough that I can take it off to Britt now and he can weld it up correctly. And there's going to be also some cross braces on it to sort of box it out so it won't rack or anything like that, but it fits in there nicely, and it, you know, bolts in really well, and so it's going to basically support that additional turbo and the exhaust and stuff hanging off of it as well. So that'll be better and less chance of any sort of vibration running anything loose there. And meanwhile, here's the guys just in the process of using some of that 5-minute to hold that foam down, and there's Jeff spraying the putty on that seat mount. So this is Tuesday, so the guys they use that high-speed resin, and by the afternoon that was already set up and it was time, or it was ready for for Jeff to hit it with a putty. And then this is as I walked out the door earlier. Just got this thing underway, running the ball mill over all that stuff, and then the flat mill just around the flange, which will be in the morning. So and that's that one done. It won't take long for the guys to lay the mold on that. And lastly, this is what the fuselage looks like on the inside there with the peel ply, where Jeff's done that layup. And also we got the gas struts fitted on the door, and they're working well. I think they're going to hold the weight without any problem. I just forgot to get some video of that. Anyway, that's our update for the first half of this week, and tune in again on Saturday. There's going to be lots more things happening for the second half of the week, and we'll see you then.